Hi everyone, good to see you. The last but not the least pillar of the ESG is governance. Let's explore during this video what this broad term means. Governance is the way the company is directed and managed. It sets of rules, processes and practices which a company follows. It also helps to align companies' operations with shareholder values and also protect stakeholders' interests by ensuring that companies taking decisions in their best interests. Stakeholders include shareholders, competitors, suppliers, employees, governments, and other parties of that company. Stakeholders want to know and experience that people throughout the company conduct business ethically and responsibly. In my opinion, the governance is the most established pillar of the ESG. This can be explained by the fact that multiple governance factors were a primary focus for investors for a long time. One of the earliest examples of governance compliance was in 1980. Quaker Friends Fiduciary No-Sin Investments that selected a path not to invest in casinos, tobacco, alcohol and weapons. But formally the term corporate governance that we know today was introduced much later, in 1970s, in the US by Securities and Exchange Commission. Governance continues to evolve to reflect changing attitudes and trends, with an increased focus ensuring that companies meet their responsibilities on environmental and social issues. So when governance is considered within sustainability, it encompasses the following topics: board and management structures and their diversity, executive pay, companies' policies and procedures, auditing and compliance, cybersecurity, confidentiality and data protection, investor stewardship. Let's now dive deeper into a few of those components. Let's take, for example, board and management composition and their diversity. A company's purpose, role and composition of boards of directors, and how corporate performance is measured are core elements of the corporate governance structures. Gender diversity and equity is another high-profile governance issue. Many institutional shareholders demand a better representation of women and minority groups within their corporate boards, leadership positions, as well as equal compensation and mobility for those groups. Many companies emphasize the financial benefits of creating inclusive workplaces. Another item is an executive pay. The compensation and oversight of CEOs and top executives is another element of governance. Many aspects of existing systems for evaluating and rewarding top executives remain unregulated, leaving board of directors solely responsible for this key component of corporate governance. Regulators in the US and the UK require public companies to allow shareholders to vote on the compensation package for executives on a regular basis. A more recent effort requires companies to disclose the ratio of CEO to median employee pay annually. Companies' policies and procedures is another big element of corporate governance. Code of conduct, or how it's sometimes called business ethics code, includes the provisions on anti-money laundering, anti-corruption, anti-fraud, whistleblower policy, provisions on political contributions and charities, gifts and hospitality, conflicts of interest, anti-slavery and human trafficking, as well as the procedure, how the compliance with these policies is monitored, and what happens when one of the risks in these policies materialize. Corporate governance also includes auditing and compliance. Is the company following and complying with its internal procedures and policies? What are the internal controls? How this is recorded, and what's done when it's violated. Are the accounting practices accurate and transparent? The next component is becoming a focus area for many companies and governments. It's cybersecurity, confidentiality, and data protection. We share a lot of personal data ourselves. And AI also gathers a lot of information about us through the web browsers, through our smartphones and smartwatch. A lot of personal statistics is being used by the apps to the software developers. Data protection and data sharing is becoming a very tricky subject. Cybersecurity is one of the major risks nowadays. Technology is amazing and we need it throughout the day, from navigating to the meeting on our phone, driving a car, or to providing electricity to our homes. The level of digitalization is so high, which is a great thing when it's used properly and securely, but the one that can also cause a lot of disruption, whether it's done intentionally or due to natural disasters. Investor stewardship. This is an important component of the corporate governance. This is the process when the investors are following up with the invested projects, try to impact and improve the project's management systems and controls. There are two main approaches to corporate governance: the stakeholder model and the shareholder model. The stakeholder model of governance is based on the idea that a company is responsible to all of its stakeholders, not just shareholders. The stakeholder model of governance is often thought to lead to better long-term decision-making as it considers all stakeholders' interests. The shareholder governance model is based on the idea that company's only responsibility is to shareholders. This means that the company should make decisions in the best interests of shareholders, even if it means sacrificing the interests of other stakeholders. The shareholder model is often thought to lead to short-term decision-making process. Companies may sacrifice the long-term projects that could benefit all of the stakeholders to higher returns to the shareholders in short term. So if company is focused on its long-term sustainable development, the stakeholder model is more appropriate. How to assess governance? There are several ways to assess an internal health of a corporate governance. Let's zoom in a few examples. From the management systems, let's have a look at Code of Conduct or Business Ethics Code, which is either one document or a series of separate policies and procedures that would cover the subjects like anti-corruption, anti-fraud, conflicts of interest, and so on that we mentioned earlier. To assess the quality and performance of those policies and procedures, one would be checking the following. The objectives of these policies shall be obvious from their statements for each applicable subject. They shall also have a clear and transparent process for external and internal stakeholders as to what company does to identify the risks, assess them and implement prevention or mitigation measures, how compliance is monitored and audited, how such data is collected, and who is responsible for compliance and audit. One would notice that if policies are lacking such clear and transparent process, these policies are rarely complied with. A structured approach to assess current status of companies' governance, to identify gaps and target further improvements is possible if company considers one of the international standards on governance. I will name a few and add links to them in description below. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development have issued G20 OECD Principles for Corporate Governance 2023. These are revised principles that offer guidance on companies' sustainability and resilience and will help companies manage environmental and social risks with insight on disclosure, the roles and rights of shareholders as well as stakeholders, and responsibilities of company boards. Board members and executives to shareholders help to build trust in markets. ISO 37000:2021 Governance of Organization Guidance. It provides principles and key aspects of practices to guide governing bodies and governing groups on how to meet their responsibilities so that the organizations they govern can fulfill their purpose. It's also intended for a stakeholder involved or impacted by the organization and its governance. I want to mention here it's applicable to all organizations regardless of type, size, location, structure, or purpose. So that's a good one to go for a small size company. The first British standard for governance is BS 13500, focuses on effective structures, relationships, and accountability, as well as guidance on how organizations can illustrate good governance. The current UK Corporate Governance Code, the Code, was published in July 2018, following an extensive outreach and consultation. The GRI Universal Standards set the foundation of all reporting through delivering the highest level of transparency for organizational impacts on economy, environment, and people. Obviously, there are benefits of good corporate governance and risks associated with a poor governance. Let's name a few to motivate you. On a positive side, the benefits are improved companies' financial performance and long-term prospects, protection for investors from potential risks, transparency of corporate disclosures, respect for all stakeholders, lower cost of capital, lower volatility, and overall competitive advantage for a company, higher returns for shareholders, and controlled risk and exposure and less exposure to them. Risks of poor governance shall also be mentioned in more detail so that one is motivated to work on continuous improvement of their corporate governance. Poor governance can lead to financial distress of a company. This can occur if the board of directors make poor decisions that result in the loss of shareholder value. Poor governance can also lead to operational problems if the board of directors fails to oversee the company's management effectively. The company can be exposed to reputational damage if the board of directors make decisions that are perceived to be unethical or irresponsible. Poor governance can also lead to fraud and corruption. So as a brief summary to this video, I just wanted to say again that understanding governance risks and opportunities in decision-making process is critical, as poor corporate governance practices stood at core of one of the biggest corporate scandals in the world. Thank you and good luck. If you like this video, please click like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.